Hello everyone, and welcome to another video here on RPGs with Paddy. I'm Paddy. So today we're going to be continuing the new Game Master month, and this will be entry 4 out of 8 to prepare us for running our first game in our chosen system. There's still plenty of time to join if you want. Check out the link in the description. I will be documenting my progress here through RuneQuest, Trail of Cthulhu, and Numenera. But the website also provides guidance for Unknown Armies, Delta Green, and Monster of the Week. Don't worry if you can't keep up exactly to the schedule. You can use it freely. And it's always good to start it when you have the time to do it properly. I believe all of the posts will stay up on the website until the end of December, and then they will start again in January 2024. Anyway, as I said, this is task 4 of 8, so we're already halfway there. Good work. Today's entry is going to be mostly about the adventure or scenario we are going to run. So, let's get into it. So, here on the website, we can see we're going to talk briefly about creating your own adventure. And this is often one of the most satisfying and fun parts about being a GM. But for this course, we're going to be running published adventures intended for beginners. So this is great to get you started, and then you can keep going with published adventures, or you can start creating your own, or a mixture of the two. I think it's really fun both ways. Published adventures have usually been play tested a lot, and are of a certain quality usually, and creating your own allows you to flex your creative skill as well. So both of them are really good. Of course, when you're playing a published adventure, always feel free to change it and add in anything that you would like to add to it, because that makes it a little bit more your own. So basically on this website, they're going to talk about what things most adventures have in common. So there's usually a setup with some kind of hook for the players to get interested in it. Then there might be some conflict that compels the players to become involved. After that, we should have an outline for how the story is likely to play out. So this can be quite a rigid system. After A, they go to B. After B, they go to C. After C, they go to D. Or it can be more flexible and vague, saying, here are a number of things that might happen in the story depending on the player's actions. Generally, it's good to stay quite flexible because you never know how your players are going to react. And we want to give them the freedom to explore it as well. It's not just telling a story, telling your story, but it's collective, collaborative storytelling. After that, in the adventure, we should also get a kind of a set of encounters or scenes. And these can involve combat, traps, social interaction, exploration, anything like that. And finally as well, an adventure should contain information about the creatures or the characters likely to be met during the adventure. Down a little bit below that, they give points for what they think makes a great adventure. So they suggest there should be an element of mystery or a plot twist, or when you complete this, you reach your goal, it turns out that that was only the tip of the iceberg. There should also be a story element to it. It's not just a random bunch of encounters, but it has a story element to it. But it doesn't railroad the players. So railroading, if you're new to RPGs, is a term you will come across a lot, which is similar to what I mentioned above, where basically the players' choices don't matter. It's going to go, A is going to happen, and then B is going to happen, and then C is going to happen. And there's no choice there. It just happens, no matter what you try and do. Even if you think that sounds like a bad idea, how about we do this? It's like, no, you have to do that. That's called railroading, and it takes away the player's choice, basically. And it's as if you are just telling your own story. So we want there to be a story there but for it to be flexible enough that it can change based on the player's choices. And we'll go into that a little bit, especially in the Trail of Cthulhu version of this video. They give some great information, so check that out. Anything else? Yes, there's usually a variety of different encounter types, so that they're not all just combat. So there should be combat, there should be social interaction, exploration, just a variety of those, so that it's not just combat and then combat and then combat. And then finally, the last part they talk about is that it plays to the interests of the players in your group and also to the characters that the players are playing. So some adventures may be great for one group who love combat. It's a very combat heavy encounter. This group will love it. But another group might hate the adventure because they want to have more social intrigue. And equally, this social intrigue adventure that they want might be bad for those. So you have to kind of talk to your group a little bit and just get a feel and kind of set the expectation for what is going on here. Usually, the first adventure that you play is usually going to be a one-shot that you complete in one evening or one session. And usually you can be fairly free with that because the players are also learning it for the first time. But ideally, you would include a variety of combat, social interaction, exploration, other things like that. And then you can get player feedback on what parts did they like, what would they like to see more of, and what parts did they not like, they want to see less of. Certain things like combat, especially in RuneQuest, combat is a little bit more complicated. And the first time players go through it, it might be a little bit, it might drag a little bit, it might seem a little bit too complicated. So you want to make sure that it's not just the growing pains. If they say, I don't like the combat in RuneQuest, for example, make sure that it's not just the growing pains of that as they're learning the system. So maybe try that a few different scenarios before you try to get rid of combat. Okay, so now we're going to start with Numenera. So the first thing we want to do here is we want to read our adventure, which is called The Taker of Sorrow. Okay, so this is the adventure that we're going to run for Numenera. And it's called Taker of Sorrow. This is designed as an adventure for first-time GMs, so perfect. And the beginning is designed so as to give a reason for all of the characters to come together, even if they're from different backgrounds. So the basic information is that the town of Gram is in the wilds of Navarine, and there's a lot of holes in the mountains that have been converted into living spaces. It's mainly farmers and traders there, but there's also a community of ascetics, which is people who live without comforts and pleasures, usually for some kind of spiritual enlightenment. And they call themselves the Serene. So the original founders of the Serene found a wondrous device in the heart of the mountain decades ago. It's called the Taker of Sorrow, and it takes away sorrow and guilt and those kind of negative feelings. It's unclear how it works, but it seems to lift the weight of shoulders of anyone who uses it. But about 10 years ago, one of the Serene, Waymel, tried to alter it to improve his own ranking. So now, not only would it take away people's sorrow and grief, but it would also leave them with a fond impression of Waymel. So people start to support him a little bit more. Mostly it worked, but some people came out with headaches, and those poor people started kind of dissolving, falling apart into hideous lumps within a few hours, and then they scampered off into the night. Those creatures are probably the main creature that we'll be dealing with in this adventure, and they're called teratomas or babble mites. A pack of them consists of 5 to 10 pieces, all of which gathered together was a single person. The creature can make basic noises and can say sentences but can't have interaction. Each individual piece starts off small, but as it feeds, it grows larger, and local citizens have started going missing as well. So Waymel uses his new influence over the population to convince them that there is a spiritual entity that abducts or kills those who are sinning, basically. So any unexplained disappearances fall under this category. So now we're going to talk about introducing the players to the situation. They will be traveling with a philosopher, athletic performer, and a teacher called Divine Nex, traveling around Navarine. So the player characters will first encounter a couple of farmers fleeing from a teratoma pack, and the farmers will ask for help. This will lead the players to the farm, or possibly straight to the larger city of Vestberg, and then from Vestberg they will head on to Gram. So in the town of Vestberg, they can help because there have been a lot of attacks from the teratomas lately. So they can start, clearing out the teratomas, or they can offer more long-term help by finding out what the source of this is. And the source of it will lead them to Gram. While they're in Gram, they will figure out the secret, but before they do, one of the PCs or Divine Nex, who they're accompanying and protecting, may already have been subject to the Taker of Sorrow, and thus they may either now be an ally of Waymel, or they might have transformed into a new Teratoma pack. And then the players at the end will have a kind of a decision to make. Do they want to try and fix the machine, which might help them reform the transformed people? Or do they want to try just to destroy the machine so that it can't cause any more damage? So basically that is the main plot of the story. We'll go into a little bit more detail now, but just before we do, the reason for all of the players coming together is something called Shin Obligations. This is basically a contract or a pledge to carry out some activity. And it's kind of publicly announced as well. Everyone knows about it. It can be something like teaching, working, sharing knowledge, traveling, etc. And the players have all undertaken a Shin obligation to provide protection to Divine Nex as she travels around. You should tell this to the players in advance, before they finalize their characters, and maybe they can think of a reason why they want to undertake this pledge. So we're actually given several reasons here in the PDF. The PCs just want to do some good. It's a coming of age activity. A tragedy in their life makes them want to find new things. It was either the Shin Pledge or go to prison. Some other reasons. One of them is friends with Divine Nex, and one of them decides to actually play the character of Divine Nex. Of course, these ones should both be in conversation with the GM and make sure that they're okay. I would say for your first time, it might be easier just to stick to these initial ones or an original one that the players come up with. These two kind of mess with the story just a little bit because Divine Nex has her clear goals that she wants to do, and the player becoming one of those can just interfere with that a little bit. And so here we actually get some more detailed information about Divine Nex. She is he or she, they, is a teacher, anyway, a singer, philosopher, inventor, and always wears masks representing different emotions. And no one has ever seen Divine Nex's face. And they always stay in a large tent with no obvious entrance. Nex is very amicable and can make friends easily. The players are basically Nex's bodyguards as they travel around for the moment anyway. And Nex won't join in any attacks, but might be able to heal the players if necessary. So it says here, can provide a bit of healing up to 2 points per round. I would say only bring that in if the player characters are starting to struggle. Down below, we have some good general advice. Only talk about the key points of each day. So this adventure is going to span out over 8 to 10 days, maybe even a little bit longer. And you don't need to describe every single hour. But sometimes including downtime scenes, for example, a campfire at the end of the day, can be really important for character building and creating stronger bonds between the characters, and in this case also with divine necks as well. So allow some time for that. Here we get a suggested schedule if you want to use, and it's accompanied with a nice flowchart here as well. If you want to do something else, or if the way that the story develops with your players changes, of course, feel free to do that. But this is a very nice layout, and you can see here, it's not so strict exactly what's going to happen. And even the layout of the encounters, even if you consider this strict A to B to C, which I think it's a bit more flexible, what happens within each of those encounters is also quite flexible. So day one, they're going to start traveling with Nex, and this is a good opportunity for everyone to introduce their character as they're kind of walking along. And the Game Master should describe Nex. And there's information obviously given above. The optional one is taking a toll. And this is, you will run an optional encounter, which is written below, called Taking a Toll. We'll get to that. In day 3, they will have encounter 1, which is when the farmers come running away from teratomas and they're looking for help. Day 4 is optional. If you want, you can go to the farmer's farm and kind of root out the teratoma there. If you don't want, you can go straight to Vesburg, which is kind of a larger city. The farm is basically just a farm, but Vesburg is a slightly larger town, village, where the players can maybe get more information and the farmers can be safe. But I would guess that most groups will want to go and clear out the farm, but it is totally up to them. After that, after you get to Vesburg, you can talk to people there and you can get more information, and you can start clearing out some of the teratomas there. But basically you should be thinking, or your group should be thinking about where are these teratomas suddenly coming from? Why are there so many more of them now? And talking to people in Vesburg will basically point you in 2 directions. One of them is the Vault of Reflections, and the other one is Gram. So we'll get exactly to that now. But really, the Vault of Reflections is a whole other scenario. So I would probably, if this is your first time running the game, I would probably try to steer them away from this and more steer them towards Gram. For your first time running a game, I think it's great to have a kind of small optional side quests here, where it gives the player some options. But this is totally different. The main scenario that's written here continues to Gram. That's where everything is coming from. The Vault of Reflections is a totally different scenario, so it's really taking you on a different route. So I would probably guide your players towards going to Gram, and we'll get to that a little bit later. And then after that, they have a couple of options. You can run one of the Shin Obligation encounters, for example, Ravage No More. And then finally, in day 8, is when the PCs will arrive in Gram, probably. And they'll spend a bit of time here, and you can go through encounters 5, 6, and 7. Yes. Okay. Yeah, sorry, here we go. 5, 6, and 7. And again, we'll go through those in a little bit. In the end, the players might just end up destroying the machine. But again, if they repair it, you could play out them trying to somehow gather the teratomas back to the machine to be revived. So after that, we get a little bit of information on role-playing and the teratomas and how they act in battle as well. So here we get what they're going to do. So that gives a lot of guidance to you as Game Master. And after that, we get the Shin obligations, which are kind of like things that are happening during our Shin obligation, which are not part of the main story here. They're kind of like mini side quests kind of thing. So the first one is taking a toll. The players will walk into a kind of a strange field, but it's got like almost a metallic ground to it, and after a while it goes down into quite a large depression, like miles wide, that has a pool, and there's a house there as well, and a hermit lives by the pool. The hermit, if the hermit sees them coming, will barricade herself in the hut and basically ignore the characters for now. They can rest at the pool if they want, but every time they leave, they somehow end up coming back, circling back and arriving at the pool. So they're walking through the woods and they think they're going just due north, and then they arrive right back at the exact same pool. They can pass, anyone can pass an intellect task, difficulty 3. And of course, if you have ways of reducing that, of course, you can reduce that difficulty. But that will let them understand that the depression is some sort of spatial bubble, and every time they try to leave, they will be bounced back. Once they realize this, the hermit will come out, and she is an abhuman or a murden. And again, in the sidebar here, they give us a little bit more information, so you can go and look them up. The closest thing I would say is probably like a hag, kind of a magical hag. And there are also 4 other murden in the hut. So the one that comes out, anyway, she doesn't speak, but she uses gestures and crude drawings to explain what's going on. She can understand most human languages, though, so the players can speak to her, but she can't speak back. But basically, through this, she can explain that she can help them escape, but only in return for gifts. And so the characters can offer her kind of any gifts, anything that has some value, such as a working cipher. If they don't want to give gifts, they can try and intimidate or fight the murden as well. Okay, so that's basically it. And another Shin obligation encounter is Ravage No More. So the characters will come across the aftermath of a fight between a Ravage bear, which we can see here, and a teratoma pack. Basically, the characters are walking along the top of a ravine, and a terrible stink comes up from a cavity. Below, they hear sounds it sounds like someone crying, or possibly multiple people, and they can investigate, or they can just go on their way, whichever they want to do. If they go down, they will find this, which please describe that as much as you can. I always think it's nice to describe it in as much detail as you can, but of course you could show this beautiful picture. Well, very well drawn, disgusting picture. But once they go down there, they can see this. The teratoma are feeding on the corpse of the ravaged bear, and so they see these weird lumps on it. Different voices in the cave can be heard whispering different things, and you can determine that it's coming from these weird blobs, these teratomas. Unless the characters try to sneak away, the teratoma will start attacking them. And that's your second encounter. Now we're going to move on to the main encounters of this adventure. So in the encounter, we get, first of all, it starts off with some read aloud text. And this is always really good for, especially for a first-time GM, to just read this out. It kind of helps you set the scene, and it gives you a little bit of confidence to just be like, okay, I can just read this, kind of just to get the juices flowing. But basically, the characters are traveling along as normal, and suddenly 2 farmers run towards looking for your help. They're both bloody with bite marks, and Nex will start to calm them down. They'll explain that they're farmers from Vestberg. They had been working on a plot of land a little bit away from Vestberg, and they were attacked. They can give more information if the players ask, but they don't really know too much. The players can then decide, do they want to go to the farm or to Vesberg? If they go to the farm, that's encounter 2. And basically a pack of 7 teratoma have been feeding here for months. So they have grown a little bit. So they're level 4 instead of level 3. If the players defeat the teratoma, the farmers will reward them. And now Nex, if the players haven't thought of it, Nex wants to go to Vesberg next anyway. That was the next destination they were heading to. So then they will go to Vesberg, and as they arrive, the town has recently recovered from being attacked from bandits, or it's currently recovering, and they're refortifying it. So the players will receive a bit of a frosty welcome, but the players can then help repair to kind of help overcome that frosty reception. Nex will definitely offer to perform some kind of musical or acrobatic thing for the village to kind of raise spirits as well. So that might encourage the players, hey, maybe we should help out as well. During their time here, they can talk to a number of people and get some information. Most of the people are aware of the teratoma attacks, and they have some information here about different NPCs as well. But the main NPC that they should talk to is Talosian, who is an Eon priest. He thinks that basically the origin of the teratoma attacks is either from Gram or from a ruin, and he will go on to explain that the ruin is the Vault of Reflections, which is in another dimension. He will offer, or he may offer, a reward if the players can kind of clear up what's going on. So as I mentioned before, if this is your first time playing Numenera, you might want to keep it simple and just mention the Vault of Reflections, because it's another full scenario. And instead heavily suggest that Gram is the most likely source. Just say that the Vault of Reflections connects to other dimensions, so it might explain things, but there's no other basis. It's kind of like, we can't explain it, so maybe it's this other unexplainable thing. But do give proper reasons why they should go to Gram, or have Divine Nex suggested as their next destination, or suggest checking out other dimensions sounds a little bit dangerous. How about we rule out Gram first? Just kind of guide your players that way, because if you're opening up the option for them to go to the Vault of Reflections, that means you pretty much have to prepare a whole other scenario as well. So that's great. Yeah, a little bit more information there. Encounter 4 is the Vault of Reflections, which is a whole other scenario. I wouldn't call it an encounter. It follows immediately after this. If they go to Gram, then again we get a little bit of read aloud text, which I always love. I think it's great, especially in an introductory scenario. But as the players approach the gate, several teratoma packs will emerge kind of from the holes in the wall and stuff like that. The guards at the gate will draw some weird rods and hold them up together, and they will release a blast of music. It sounds beautiful to the players, but the teratoma run away from it as if it's really awful. So some people, when you're talking to the guards or anyone beyond, you can find out that some people come to Gram looking for serene peace. So the guards are accustomed to having visitors. So the guards will happily let them in and direct them to the different places around town. The guards can also answer any questions the PCs have, but they say definitely the teratomas don't originate here. They can let you know that Waymel is the leader, and they suggest that the players go to the Taker of Sorrows to help them relax. You know, say, you look like you've been through the war. You should go and have your sorrow taken away. Everyone in Gram is friendly and warm, but almost creepily so. So you can really kind of play this up, that almost kind of Stepford Wives kind of thing, that they're a little bit too friendly. Divine Next may want to go on ahead to the Supplicant Hostel to try the Taker of Sorrows if the players are doing some other things. And then if the players want to investigate anything else. But then basically we'll get to the Supplicant Hostel, and this is where the Taker of Sorrows is. If the players ask about Waymel or the Taker of Sorrows, both are unavailable and they're in use, behind this door. But if they want, they can wait and meditate here with the clerk or someone helping them anyway. If Nex went on ahead without the players might wonder where he is. The woman working there says she never met him. If the players are sick of waiting and try to force the door open, the woman will be shocked and will run away because, you wouldn't expect that. If, on the other hand, the players wait, the door to the Taker of Sorrow opens, and then the players can talk to Waymel. After that, so this is kind of like this encounter is the waiting there to see what do the players do. But then the next scenario is the Chamber of Sorrows. So this is the final one. And again, we get a little bit of read aloud text just describing the situation. Always feel free to alter this as much as you want. If you don't like how this sounds, change it up. But it's just a nice guide you can use or alter or abandon completely if you don't want. But you can talk to Waymel anyway, and he will basically lie through his teeth. But the players might not know that. He says that they used to have a problem with the teratoma here, but these songbird devices keep them away. If the players have forced the door open, forced their way in, they can see Waymel at the machine, leaning over the drain, pushing down the last bits of a person like the hand who just suffered a failed experiment. And this might have been Divine Next. I'm mixing it up with the RuneQuest game. The body will turn into a teratoma pretty soon. It's just kind of down in the drain at the moment. If it's allowed to stay up there, the pack basically will go after Waymel first, but he will use his songbird devices to push it down the drain. And Waymel may also ask the players for help. If the players ask Waymel about what they just saw, if that is they broke in, which is a person turning into a teratoma pack, he will attack them because he wants to keep this secret. And the Taker of Sorrow, the machine, will also attempt a pre-programmed blast at another creature, not Waymel, in the chamber. If Waymel seems to be losing this battle, after a round or two he'll shout out, "Wait, if you kill me, you'll kill everyone who the Reaper of Sin stole away. Only I can bring them back. Swear on your honor to spare me, and I will save them." So if the players don't want a deal, he will fight to the end. If the players accept his deal, he can alter the songbird devices to lure all of the teratoma back. So as they are at the moment, they're going to chase the teratoma away. But if he changes the device, the songbirds will bring them back, which is nice. And then he can alter the Taker of Sorrow to reform the teratoma into the humans. So there are several different endings possible, and it's really up to your players what they want to do. I wouldn't offer options to the players, such as, oh, you can try to fix the machine or you can break the machine. Let your players suggest what they want to do. And this could end up leaving everything as it is, threatening Waymel, killing him, revealing his secret to the town, destroying the machine, anything like that. Whatever your players want to do to conclude the scenario. Okay, so that is the adventure, The Taker of Sorrow, for Numenera. And I think it goes through a lot of things. If we look just one more time at the what makes a good scenario here as well, we can see that there's the initial set of circumstances and kind of you're going with Divine Next to the different places. You have a reason for that. There's a conflict. The farmers come asking for help. There is an outline. There's the flow chart of how the adventure will run. There's lots of different scenarios and scenes, and there are different ways to overcome them. Some of them are social encounters, some of them are combat, but most of them have a choice as to how you want to proceed. We also get information on creatures and characters. There's obviously a mystery, what's going on with the teratoma, even though we don't have the mystery at the start. There's a clear story as well. You can find out more about, certainly if you talk to Waymel, you can find out more about what happened with the religious sect. There's a variety, as I mentioned before, fighting, negotiating, all that. And this is the one where it's difficult to decide on that. But I think it's great as a starter scenario because it has a nice wide range. All right, so that is the end of this video. I hope you enjoy it. If you have any questions about this scenario, or if you any uncertainties about how to run it, yeah, let me know and I can help you out there as well. I can give you my opinion on the matter. But also don't forget there is the new GM month Discord channel, Discord server, and also a Facebook group as well. So there's lots of support there from people who are either experienced Numenera game masters, or people like me and maybe like you who are running it for the first time. So don't be afraid to ask for help. All right, so that's going to do it for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye.